Welcome to the All's Authors Podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Mary Ann Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, OWLS author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hi, it's Mary Ann. November is both National Caregiver Appreciation Month and National Alzheimer's Month. In honor of these important recognitions, we have two gifts to offer you. The first is a limited number of audiobooks of our first anthology, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. 58 authors share their inspiring personal experiences. This is a collection of the first year's posts on our blog, which will immerse you in a world of writing about Alzheimer's and dementia gathered by our management team, who work tirelessly to find and vet resources, memoir, novels, nonfiction, poetry, children's books, blogs, and more, to give those living with dementia a trusted place to find the support and knowledge they need. If audiobooks aren't your thing, the book is also available in ebook. To get your copy, email allsauthors@gmail.com. That's alzauthors@gmail.com. We're also offering a free copy of our caregiver tip sheet, 13 helpful tips for the long-distance caregiver, compiled through my own personal experience. The link to download this helpful guide is in the show notes. As always, we thank you for supporting our podcast. Remember, you are not alone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this presentation of All's Authors Live. Everything you've always wanted to know about living with dementia, but were afraid to ask. Part 2. Today is October 24th, 2023. My name is Mary Ann Shuko, and I'm a co-founder and manager of All's Authors, the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. Thank you for sharing some of your precious time with us. Please write your name and where you're from in the chat box. We enjoy seeing which far-flung places our participants are zooming in from. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Christy Byrne-Yates, who is the author of Building a Legacy of Love, Thriving in the Sandwich Generation, based upon her caregiving journey with two parents with dementia. She is my podcast co-host and producer and is also helping me to run this event. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you very much. And I want to call out that Marianne is also an OWLS author. Every member of our management team is an author, and Marianne is the author of Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story. And it's a novel, and it's wonderful, so please take a look at that as well.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So today we're here with four of our authors, because one of them is unable to join us today. 4 of our authors who are all living with dementia, some for more than 10 years. And these people have all met in our Zoom room before, 2021, we gathered for a discussion about their lives and how they managed to live well with dementia, the challenges they've faced, and the challenges they've conquered. It was an insightful and inspiring conversation, and we thought it would be a great idea to gather them together again 2 years later to see how they're doing and how or if their lives have changed. And we also have some exciting news to share today. Our podcast recently achieved more than 100,000 downloads, and the replay of this event will be our 100th episode. So we're really excited about that. Thank you to everyone who has been a guest, tuned in, reviewed, and subscribed to this podcast. We are still going strong and looking forward to a robust 2024. Yeah, I think we're ready. Let's get started. First, I want to introduce everyone on the panel and give you a few seconds to say hello. We're going to start with Peter Berry, who ran his family's timber business for decades before becoming diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at age 50. You say hello, Peter?
Hello from sunny Suffolk in England.
All right. He's sitting with Deb Bunt, who is the co-author of his 2 books. Peter immediately stopped working after his diagnosis, and he fell into a deep depression. But after some time, he realized he still had life to live. He overcame his depression, and now he fills his days with cycling across the English countryside with his friends and advocating for those with dementia in his community and on social media. To date, he has raised more than £20,000 for dementia charities through cycling challenges. He tells his story in Slow Puncture, Living Well with Dementia with Deb, and his second book, Walk With Me, Musings Through the Dementia Fog. Peter has been on our podcast before and on panels before, so you can learn more about him on our website. Next up is Jennifer Bute. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
Jennifer is a physician. She worked in Africa for many years before returning to England and working as a family practitioner for 25 years and was involved in medical education. She was diagnosed with dementia more than 10 years ago and speaks at conferences and on radio and has been involved in television programs raising awareness and understanding of the condition. She passionately believes that more can be done to improve both the present and the future for those living with these conditions. She is the author of Dementia from the Inside, A Doctor's Personal Journey of Hope. And her website, gloriousopportunity.org, includes videos where she discusses different aspects of the condition, and she also blogs on Facebook at Glorious Opportunity. And she has also been a guest on our podcast. And all of this information and these links will be included. They're on our website right now, and they'll be included again in the blog post and the show notes for this podcast. We also have Michael Ellenbogen joining us. Hello, Michael.
How you doing? Thank you for having me here.
Oh, always. It's wonderful to see you. Michael was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 49 after experiencing symptoms for 10 years. This led to an early retirement from his career in information technology. Following his diagnosis, he has become an outspoken advocate for those with dementia and has written articles and blog posts in addition to his book, From the Corner Office to Alzheimer's. He has appeared on podcasts, including All's Authors, and television, and has testified before the United States Congress. And last but not least, we have Gerda Saunders. Hello, Gerda.
Hi, everybody.
So lovely to see you again. Gerda was the Associate Director of and taught in the Gender Studies program at the University of Utah. She also taught gender and literature courses in the English department. At the age of 61, she was diagnosed with cerebral microvascular disease, a precursor to dementia, and she retired a year later. She maintains an active lifestyle, writing and speaking about the disease in a variety of settings, and is the author of Memory's Last Breath, Field Notes on My Dementia, and she blogs at My Life with Dementia. Her story was featured in a PBS Utah documentary, The Gerda That Remains, and she has also been a guest on our podcast. So thank you all for being with us today and sharing your stories. I know that a a lot of it is very deeply personal and painful. So we appreciate your being willing to step out and let others know what is going on. So I would like to start back with the question, how has your life changed in the last 2 years since we spoke the first time? This was our very first virtual event, was with all of you in 2021. How has your life changed, and has your condition changed, or maybe nothing has changed at all? What can you tell us about that, Gerda?
My life has changed a lot in the last 2 years. I have, I think the main issue is the anxiety and depression that comes with many forms of, I think most forms of dementia. And I've been, I'm suffering from what I've heard a lot of my dementia buddies here say as well, the difficulty of not having any motivation. And it's just that I have periods when I feel very capable of, or very interested in doing something, but they're getting fewer and further between. So I've been in a good stretch now. I've been for probably 3 weeks to a month. I've really been, inspired to do things. And I just have to say, my husband Peter is here too. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be able to do the things I can still do. So the biggest thing the saddest thing about this is that I'm losing my desire to be with people. And it's I'm regressing to a hermit style life. But with Peter's help, I'm still able to maintain connections with my close friends and of course with my family. But I've done things that I've never done before. I've had people reach out to me from whom I've heard maybe 10 years ago. And I honestly, if they're listening, I'm embarrassed, but I haven't even responded to their emails from months ago by now. I just cannot put the energy and the love that I still have toward people who are not in my life very regularly. And it goes against my deepest feelings of how I should be a human being. So that's a very hard thing for me at the moment. But anyway, I'll stop there. But thanks for asking, Marion, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Gerda. Would anybody like to speak next? Peter?
Yes. I didn't want to interrupt anybody else, but yes, I think over the last couple of years, physically, I have kept pretty well, as I always have been, because I'm doing all the cycling and all of that sort of thing. I don't do Facebook and that sort of thing as much as I did. That's gradually dropping off, but I have wonderful Debs who does that for me, so that's okay. And I think it's very safe to say that over the last few months, a year or so, my memory has declined quite a bit. I think that's safe to say. To give you examples, I will go out in the morning with people, and when I'm back home, I can totally not have any recollection of going out with them. But yes, there's still problems, but yes, we are still finding solutions. I have cards now that I have on my bicycle that I can put on so that if I'm meeting Debs or meeting somebody, there's a card written there, you are meeting this person at this place. So when I cycle, I've got it there in front of me. So, yes, things are changing, and they will do, but at the end of the day, it's not so much the changes that are the issue, it's how we can, if we can, try and help, I suppose, find solutions to them changes. And having support from family and friends is key to keeping us moving forward.
Okay, well said. And Deb, while we have you here, can you explain to everyone what your and Peter's schedule is like?
Hectic. As Peter talks at more events and becomes more known, more people are asking us to do talks, which is fantastic, because that's the purpose and there's a message to disseminate. But it's getting increasingly complicated to organise things and to balance it with wanting to cycle, for us both to wanting to have our own social lives and yet to want to do the things that we do. So the next big event we've got is a Dementia Summit in London next week. And that's an overnight stay in London. So that obviously comes with a whole host of associated issues. And I think for Peter, he would just rock up, and he had no nerves, and he just turns up and talks. But for me, I have to try and be a bit more organised. And that's something I don't always do that well. But I guess the short answer is we have a very busy schedule, which is, I hope, what Peter wants. I think it's what Peter wants. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Peter and Deb travel all over England, appearing at conferences, speaking to big and smaller groups. They've been on radio, they've been on TV. So they are very busy. And I just want to clarify that Deb is not Peter's wife. Peter is married to Teresa, who lives with him and cares for him. And I think that sometimes people might get confused, Deb, and think that you might be Peter's wife.
I'm married to Martin,
and she's married to Martin.
It's for me as well.
Yes. Yes.
But also, we go out together as two couples.
Right. Very good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Jennifer, did you want to add?
It just shows how different we all are, and we all have equal worth and value. It's lovely what's good about this group, that we're all different and we have different skills, we go through different stages, but we all still have equal worth. And I think we're all saying we have to try and find other ways to adapt, don't we? So, I've been very grateful for the last, 2 years. We had the end of COVID. That really changed our lives, didn't it? But for me, it did good stuff, because on COVID, one got used to Zoom. And that has enabled so much more, hasn't it? It's transformed our lives for the better, really. So one's been able to do far more in the way of talks and things. And of course, there's the face-to-face conferences, which I love. I love teaching. So, I've had a whole day conference. And after that, then they wanted me to teach, NHS surgeries, for example, how, their doctors and their nurses and all the rest of it in their lunch hour. And of course, on Zoom, I could do that all around the country, couldn't I? So it's lovely. It's a real opportunity. I'm very grateful. And then internationally, I was, my book was translated into Chinese, and I was invited to go out to Taiwan and for a week and give lectures. I couldn't do that. So they wanted, last year they wanted a video, a filming done in some small conference they did. And this year, my son has been helping me. We've just done for a much bigger doodah in Taiwan, and it's all got to be translated into Chinese and all the rest of it. But anything that helps anyone, I'm willing to do. So I'm very grateful for that. And of course, I think, last year, I was so grateful for the ADI conference in London that enabled me to talk on my pet thing, which is getting people with advanced dementia to talk. And I was so grateful for that opportunity. And that has led on to other things as well. So that's very good. And another thing, we got involved with my local MP who knew nothing about dementia, so I educated him. So I'm very grateful
very grateful. And of course, a sense of humor, because I don't know who my sisters are anymore, but we just laugh about it. I mean, it's just hilarious, the kind of things that we get up to. You know, they come in having a clue who they are. I mean, just one short story. One came in dressed in black because it'd been pouring with rain and with her umbrella, and she went like this with the umbrella. I thought she was attacking me with a machine gun. I didn't know who this person was. It was so funny. But we need a sense of humor still, don't we?
Yes. Yes, I think we do. And last but not least, Michael, can you tell us how, or if your life has changed in the last 2 years?
Absolutely. I remember the last time I was rushing to connect with you folks. I had just moved and was concerned whether my internet would work or not, because just a few days after moving in. But I have to tell you, I love where I've moved to. It's fantastic. I consider myself very lucky and fortunate because I've had the opportunity to beat this disease for so long. And I have gone downhill a bit, but hey, that's expected, and, you just have to make do with what you have and try to figure things around it, unfortunately. I rely more on my wife today. I used to love reading those big books that used to come out from the Alzheimer's Association and all these other organizations that had to do with dementia, but I just don't have it in me anymore. I have not read one of those things in the last 2 years. It's just too much for me, and I just can't process the information and recall the information. A lot of people think, reading is just being able to read, but if you can't enjoy reading it and retaining it, and it's more frustrating because, by the time you get to the second chapter or the second paragraph, you forget what you were reading about, and it just becomes more frustrating to read. So people can't understand that. I know there's one woman I've been talking to recently who is into trying to educate and make things better for people with dementia on how to read. And she's made these simplified versions and things, but they don't understand that sometimes it's more frustrating trying to read. And if you can't understand it and it's not meaningful anymore, it's like, what's the sense of doing it? So I do a lot of advocacy still. I'm really proud and even surprised at some of the things I still accomplish. In fact, I've been able to get the Philippines to become dementia-friendly communities as of October 6th. It was a kickoff for all of South Asia. So, like I said, I'm surprised I'm still able to get some of these major high-level things accomplished. But I'm not the person I used to be, and I'm kind of kicking back a little bit and relaxing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, you mentioned how you had moved, like right before we talked. And I think, Jennifer, you changed your living arrangements recently as well, right?
Yes, I needed more help.
Okay. Can you explain that?
Yes, I've been at the previous place for 10 years and they were wonderful, but they just couldn't provide the extra help I needed apart from putting me in the advanced dementia unit, which I'm not quite ready for. So that's why I moved to this place in Cheltenham, which is wonderful. And they're so supportive. And the local person, there's one person on now, isn't he? He's been so supportive. And I just feel it's another different, but a different kind of new lease of life. But I have to, I don't know whether you're asking this now, but I couldn't cope without artificial intelligence.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, I agree with Michael. What reading is impossible. You haven't a clue what book you're reading even. Well, I use the thing over there spelled Alexa.
Oh, yes.
if I mention her name, she'll jump into it, whatever. So I just ask her to read my book. I can't remember what book I'm reading at the moment, and she knows where I got up to, and I can ask her to go back a chapter or ask her, what's it been? It's wonderful. So that's how I cope with reading, because I can't do it otherwise. And then artificial intelligence, again, I try to write it down. I can't, where did I put it? My son gave me an iWatch, and I said, I don't want an iWatch. And he said, well, you're jolly well going to have one, Mum, and you won't be able to live without it. And he's right. He's absolutely right, because if I get lost, I can just ask, how do I get home? And, if he wants to contact me, he can contact me on here. I can answer. My daughter's, lives in New Zealand. She can phone me on my watch, and it can remind me to take it can do everything. And if I fall down and I don't get up again, it'll inform someone for me. I couldn't live without artificial intelligence. And I think whether we like it or not, it's not going to replace human contact. It can never do that. But it can certainly make life safer for me and easier, because it does it automatically. When I don't know what to do, I just say, help me, please, I want to do this, and it'll do it. And isn't that good? It's not a bad thing, but a lot of people are frightened of artificial intelligence.
Jennifer, I have to say, I love how you're describing how the, I guess it's the Apple Watch that you have, correct? That is so fascinating to me, and I didn't think about that, but you're right. I mean, how often is somebody calling you and you don't remember where your phone was? But now the current Apple Watch, right, it rings on your wrist and it's there. And what a wonderful thing that you can then connect to somebody. Thank you for sharing that. That's really fascinating. Thank you. And I also wanted to say, we have had a guest on our podcast talking about the challenges for reading. So this is really a very, common and for many people a sad development that reading becomes challenging. So yeah, I thank you both for sharing those struggles.
Mm-hmm. And that guest was Susan Ostrowski, which for Reading to Connect, who was on our podcast most recently, I think. So if you go to the website, to the podcast page, you can find her discussion if you want to learn more about resources to help people with dementia try to regain their reading skills. I don't know if that's who you've been talking to, Michael.
Actually, I don't know who the person is. I think their site might be something, reading.com or something like that. I don't remember. Okay,
so it may or may not be the same person, but it's definitely worth listening. She's a speech language pathologist and an educator, and has a lot of experience and skills to share. But I want to get back to this AI thing, because I know that you, Gerda, you rely on your iPhone to get around. Is that right?
Oh, I so admire Jennifer for being able to deal with the technology, because Peter's just come to help me. You see, I couldn't do anything without him. But the reason, right. Yeah, I am. Thank you. The reason I use my iPhone is because Peter's at the other end tracking me on GPS. So I sort of use the iPhone as a one of those little old telephones that you had when you were a kid, when you put the two tins in a wire and you speak into each side. That's my phone is the channel for getting the information from Peter, because unfortunately I cannot read maps anymore. But as far as other technology, I am so grateful for my computer, which also with Peter's help, I can still manage, because writing is one of the few things that I am sometimes inspired to do. And it's one of my greatest creative pleasures that I have left. And so if it weren't for the computer, I don't know, I just wouldn't have written. But technology is a huge part of mine and Peter's lives and our connection with our children too on a daily basis. So I appreciate what I can use of it.
That's great. What about Peter? Do you use any? You and Deb, how do you? I know that you guys communicated a lot of the work for your book through the text messaging.
Yes, yeah, I use. Obviously, I have a mobile phone, and I use Messenger, I think it is, and text messaging. But that's about it, really. I don't really do a great deal on technology, really. I don't know why. I've just not really. I suppose I've done without it so far. But the watch seems to be a good idea, and I think a lot of these things are. But I tend to go more with cards and written stuff as opposed to technology. So I'm a little bit of a dinosaur as far as that goes, and I need dragging up to date, I think, really. But I think as my condition changes, then I think we will come up with new solutions, and probably technology will be part of that. But I'm very fortunate because Deb manages all the Facebook and everything else that we do. So I suppose I haven't got to worry about it too much. And I suppose because somebody else does it, then I'm not pushing myself to do it, maybe. So possibly somebody else doing it is probably not such a good thing sometimes. But then it gives me a chance to focus on other things like repairing everybody's bicycle and sorting everybody else's stuff out. I'm very good at mending and repairing things. Even if it's like putting a battery in an iPhone, I can do it. I can do all of those sort of things. So yeah, I suppose we're all the same, but we're all very different, aren't we?
Yeah. I just want to say that, Peter, when you earlier said about putting a card on your bicycle, I had a nice smile to myself because the more I forget things, the more I resort to little paper notes everywhere in the house. And I also use visual reminders. If I have to, say, fix something, I can still do needlework, and so I'm always modifying my clothes and so on. So if I do that, I drop it in our living room where I sit by my chair, because else I won't remember that that's what I wanted to do. And I put things by our door where we go out. Anything I have to remember, I put there, and I have to trip over it in order to remember to take it with me or do what I have to do. So you're right. We all cope in such different ways, but we cope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is fascinating how each of you are describing how you use different methods to kind of get through the day. So I certainly understand, Peter, you've got, I think the written notes, and you and Gerda talking about the written notes, I'm already there. I'm already putting Post-it notes all over the place. But I also rely a lot on my Apple Watch. So it's amazing what we adapt to.
I just think that written notes don't need recharging. They don't need any management. Whereas all you've got to have is a pencil. And I think that's a great idea, because I probably forget to charge something up. I mean, my phone is always running out of charge because I just forget. Yeah, if we go out cycling, I have a paper map instead of any GPS system, because I know the paper map will always work.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to add to the discussion about using AI or technology to navigate your life? Anything else? Michael?
As you know, I used to be into technology, and I'm a firm believer that technology is the answer to a lot of the things for people who are living with dementia. The sad part is I can no longer even use a cell phone. And I had cell phones when they were like big giant boxes, and people didn't even have them. So, while it's helpful, I don't know if everybody who has dementia can slowly use technology. And that's probably the biggest problem I see, is that the technology has to become better and easier to use for people with dementia than it is today. And the only way that's going to happen is by involving people such as myself and others to understand where the complexity is, so they can figure out how to make it simpler for us. Because it can be done. But if they don't involve people living with dementia, they're never going to be able to make it work.
That's a good point. And I think a lot of times it has to do with what you were doing before you had the diagnosis. And if you were navigating with technology, then you develop certain muscle memory and skills that it's so natural to you. Because I know I tried to get my mom in her late 80s, early 90s to use a cell phone because we wanted to be able to text message, because she couldn't hear and she did not have dementia, but she could not grasp any of it. And neither could my mother-in-law. And neither of them had dementia, but they just had never used these devices, and it made no sense to them. So I think that has a lot of what, like with Peter and his cycling, that was something he has always done his whole life. It wasn't something that he picked up after he had dementia. Right, Peter?
Yes. I've been cycling ever since I was in my very early teens, and competitively since 1979. So in a sort of a semi-professional manner. So yes, it's something I've been doing all my life. So it was always there. And the bicycle hasn't really changed, or the ones that I use haven't changed since that time. So they're basically exactly the same as they were when I changed. Modern bicycles nowadays are extremely complex, and I steer away from those. I like to be able to pull them apart myself and put them back together. So do I need the bicycle, or does the bicycle need me? I like to think that it needs me.
my bicycle needs you.
Oh, no, well, I have to wait for you.
That's great. Jennifer, you look like you were going to add some thoughts.
Yes, I was just going to say, I'm not convinced that people with dementia can't learn to use things. I mean, during COVID, when I was at the previous place, and again here, I've managed to alter things too. During COVID, when no one could talk to anybody else, and all the groups that I was encouraging, social groups within my community, all kind of stopped, and we were all locked up in our rooms. And I knew that the community, the authorities, so to speak, had iPads, which they'd never used. So I persuaded the staff, who were so supportive, and they understood the isolation that was doing harm to people with dementia. Mm-hmm. So I persuaded them to take the iPad along to somebody, set it up for Zoom, and then I would chat to them. And then we'd get someone else to do it and join in. And slowly, one at a time, it wasn't suddenly a great big group. And it worked. It was wonderful. And some of them then, the thing over there beginning with A, was also able to help with this kind of thing. And people who thought that they could never do it, families were amazed that they were, people in their 80s, 90s were able to do this. But they had to have a lot of help to start with and to see that it was worthwhile. It's no good just saying this is a good idea. And because they were isolated, they were delighted to have that connection.
That's beautiful, and part of that was sort of, that's a lovely combination of technology and then help from another person to kind of make it easier to use. So, but I do hear what you're saying, Michael, because I feel like some of the technology has so many bells and whistles that it's more than the average person even would need sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like I certainly don't use everything on my watch, right? But it's all there. And that can be overwhelming. But yeah, I certainly hear what you're saying, Jennifer. And I think that's beautiful that the staff there were able to help you and others be able to have social life. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that is important, and it can be a life changer and a lifesaver. And I'll speak for our friend Wendy Mitchell, who was not able to join us today and really has a lot to offer. But if you are not familiar with Wendy, you can look her up on Twitter, and you can find her blog, Which Me Am I Today, and she communicates a lot using the internet to stay in touch with her friends. And actually, they record some of their conversations, and you can sit in on them, and they can be hilarious. So she is another good example of someone using technology to continue to live a very active life with dementia. So I just wanted to add that because she's not here to speak for herself. So we were talking about living arrangements, because I know that what you read in dementia care, living arrangements are an important factor, because often there are many different moves along the dementia journey. I know that Christy's been involved in that. I was involved in that. So Michael was moved by choice. They built a new home. And can you just tell us what that was like for you, trying to move in the midst of everything else that was going on with you?
Well, before the move, it was aggravating. I got to tell you, it took me so long to pack. In fact, I started packing almost a year before that, and it was a lot more than I expected. But after the move, it was great because my wife had also quit her job, and that was part of the plan when we moved. And it's made my life a lot easier and simpler, because now I got somebody around me that when I run into an issue or I don't understand something, I can easily ask her, where in the past she was at work. So it would be a little bit more frustrating for me. So now I got somebody I can rely on to take care of a lot of the things that I would have issues with. So it's really made my life a lot easier. I can't say the same for her. It's probably added a lot more burden to her. But as we know, as we go through the stages, you have to rely heavier on your loved ones, unfortunately. So it's good that at least I have somebody. Some people, sadly to say, they live alone and they struggle and they don't have somebody they can depend on.
So true. And Jennifer, can you tell us you told us about your move. You had to move out of necessity. And
yes.
that turned out to be a good thing.
It did. I had to downsize again. My son from Ukraine, he was wonderful. He did it for me, really. He was very, very good, and came here and he set the place up almost identically in the main room, so much so that my grandson in New Zealand said, well, you haven't moved. It looks just the same. So it was familiar. But here I have stuff. For example, I forget to eat. I forget to drink. I was in hospital last week and I forgot to drink. But I do. But here, I was out at the time, so it was nothing to do with the staff here. But here, if I don't turn up for a meal, they come and find out why not. Mm-hmm. There might be a good reason, but they always come just to check. Mm-hmm. And if there's any incident that I need extra help, they will provide it. I have to pay extra, of course, but, they're always there 24 hours a day. And they're supportive in everything that I do. And you never feel that you're a nuisance. The staff are amazing. Whereas before you had to kind of book it in a week in advance. Well, that's a bit late if you need an emergency, So I'm really, really happy here. And I'm just so grateful. So grateful.
Jennifer, that sounds so wonderful. And there are so many different options for people, right? Some people can stay in place, age in place in their home. And then some people, for whatever reason, they might not have another person at home. And so they might need a place where they have a community and the staff built in. I also remember you saying earlier today, that you were at one place but you kind of didn't need the high level that they had. And I think that's the one place where I think facilities, sometimes there's that middle ground that isn't existing as it could yet, where maybe you don't need much when you start, but that gradual needing more, how do we do that in a way that's really supportive of people, keeping people as independent as possible? But it seems like sometimes it's like you're really independent and then no independence, so it's like that middle ground that needs to be maybe developed more. But I love hearing that this is a good experience for you, because everybody here has kind of a different setup, and that's really terrific because there are many solutions to this, and not everybody needs the same thing. So that's great to hear.
And one good thing they do here is they integrate us. Where I was before, your assisted living, CHOP, care home, CHOP, advanced dementia unit, CHOP. Right. Was here, anything that we can do together, we do together. Which is wonderful. People can come down for meals from the advanced dementia unit, with help or with support if they've got visitors, or we can go up to them and there's a concert up there and we can join in. And there's no discrimination. It's not them and us. It's we're all together. And I think that is how it ought to be, because we have equal value, how advanced our dementia is. And music kind of wakes people up, as you know. Right. And they find out for different people what wakes them up, and then they make a most of it. They really use that and utilize it. And I just think this place is amazing.
Yeah, I think that message is important because in my role as a case manager years back, there were often discussions with individuals and their families about new living arrangements and getting greater supports, and people tend to dig their heels in. And that is like one concession that they don't want to make, and they don't realize that sometimes the grass is greener on the other side, and there is benefit in a new situation. And then on the other hand, people are advised not to move their loved ones because it creates greater confusion, not to alter their living environment because that can create more stress and frustration. So it's kind of a delicate mix. I know with my mother-in-law, and again, she did not have dementia, but she was of advanced age, and she was, going to stay at home until the end. That was her plan, even though we wanted her to come stay with us. And then when she finally had to come stay with us, she was so happy because she didn't even realize what she was missing out on, just having people about all the time and people to make meals for her and someone to eat with and watch TV with. It made a huge difference. I think at the end of her life, she was very happy with that choice. So it's something to think about.
Now, I just wanted to say that we are the lucky ones who have those choices, who have the financial means to change our situation and make it better. And we're the lucky ones who have people close to us who will come help us. And Jennifer, you have your son who backed up for you and helped you with moving. And you said, Michael, you have your wife helping you now. We're the lucky ones because I think, I don't know if I can say that, but I almost think the United States is just much worse than Britain. But we live in a very nice apartment in a sort of, we have a small nature area just that we look out on and where we can walk by the river. We have a park across the road. And because of that reason, we have homeless people camping out here all the time. And it breaks my heart because I see people who are in worse states of dementia, probably also not having regular medical care. And they are the ones who don't have any of these things that we value and that we talk about. And I always want us to remind ourselves that, I'm grateful every day, and I just don't even know how to feel about the people, who are here in our cities trying to do things. One of my former students is the mayor of Salt Lake City now. They have been trying now for many years to address the homeless issue. And it is something that our society just will have to contend with at some time. Anyway, I don't wanted to say that, but I also wanted to say that we had a minor sort of disruption in our living quarters. because the apartment wanted to put in new carpets for us in 2 of the rooms. Where Peter's working in his study and our bedroom. The rest has other floors. But we had to get somebody to move every single piece of furniture out of the bedroom and the office, and we had to park it in the living room, and which meant that we couldn't live here. So our apartment put us up at a place across the street, and I cannot tell you how confusing it was to be just across the street and not know what is going on in my life. So I really do appreciate the stability of having a place to live in and all the help that I have.
Thank you so much. And Michael, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, she had mentioned the U.S., and I agree. The U.S. is kind of behind the times, but I will say this. We are starting to change, and we're starting to become better, hopefully. CMS just announced a couple months ago that they're looking into a 10-year study to see if we can allow people to live in their homes rather than go into assisted livings, and be able to bring the food to them and to have caregivers for hire to come to them. So I think we are starting to change how we look upon people with dementia. Rather than have to take them away out of the home, they're going to try to see if they can let them stay in the home. So I think there's some good things starting to happen here.
Great, thank you. I know somebody had asked about do we have the closed captioning, and I don't seem to be able to find that. Christy, I don't know if you're able to.
I'll take a look, and if I can, I'll put that up there. Yeah.
That was Bob. Bob, we will have a transcript for you if you would like, so you need to let me know. We can get a transcript of this whole thing if anybody's interested in that. I had another question before we do. We open up the chat for questions from the participants, but are any of you on any of the Alzheimer's medications? Michael?
I am on at least 2 of them. I'm not sure what they are right now, but I'm also on things that are not prescription drugs, such as coconut oil, turmeric, and Reversitrol. These are all known to have possibly helped. So I'm on a regimen of all kind of drugs. In fact, I probably take about 25 different drugs every morning and at night. And I believe that they all are somehow contributing to helping me. Some of them are for blood pressure and things like that, as these are all known things that could possibly lead to other problems, you know.
And how long has it been since your diagnosis?
Oh my God. My diagnosis was in 2008, and you'll have to do the math. But it took me 10 years before I got that diagnosis. So it's been a long time. Yeah. And I mean, I'm definitely holding pretty steady, but I'm slowly losing the skill sets.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else want to answer about medications?
I am on a drug, but I don't know what it's called. But I've been on a drug ever since I was diagnosed. We had one in England. It hasn't progressed, and no new drugs have come out for probably quite a few years in England. And the drug that I'm taking is the highest dose, and it treats the symptoms, and that's all. But I cannot tell you what it's called. So I'm only on one Alzheimer's drug, but I don't know how long have I been diagnosed now. 8, 9 years. Yeah. So something's working. I'll put it that way. But I'm also a great believer that we are responsible for ourselves to a certain degree, and I seem to think that eating the right things, keeping physically active, if I keep the bit from here down healthy, that must help the bit from here up. That's sort of how I seem to work it. So yeah, hopefully the medication and what I'm doing and the positivity, I think, is probably helping and doing some good.
I mean, obviously, I'm not Peter's partner, but I can say with certainty that when I see him, if he hasn't been busy the previous day, and then when we become busy, I see a huge difference in how he is. So that living well and that keeping busy and having a sense of purpose is a drug.
Gerda.
I just want to say there is no medication for the vascular disease version of dementia, but I agree with Peter that I do all the things that I can do to stay as healthy as possible. I walk, and my goal has gone down shamefully, during COVID, and I'm still building up to my previous goal of 10,000 steps a day that I probably will not be able to maintain ever again. But I do up to about 8,000 on my good days, and I keep doing that. And then also I just eat healthy food. I'm fortunate to have access to healthy food, and people who can't cook for themselves, and so they resort to fast food, or just if you don't have financial stability, you buy the cheapest things that you can that will bring calories, and those are the worst for your health usually. So I do believe we are responsible in that respect for doing what we can to stay well.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have any comment to that question? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I'm on medication, and also my neurologist many years ago, I was 2009, Michael, so you beat me to it. I was diagnosed, and my neurologist said that there'd been trials in Oxford in England, but it wasn't kind of accepted that if you're on very high dose of vitamin B, all the vitamin Bs, you know how many there are, that would actually make a difference. And he believed it did. So I then did myself. You can buy them from the health shops, can't you? Busy bees, they're called. All the vitamin Bs, huge amounts to take them. And I have stayed well. But it's not just that. You're right, what everyone else has said. We need purpose and value, don't we? I mean, my faith, I'm sure, makes a difference. We have purpose too. And I sum it all up by saying, get on your sledge. The social engagement. We must keep socially engaged. And laughter, must laugh, because that causes release of chemicals in the brain again, doesn't it, which does us good. That's good. And exercise, of course, however little it is. Well done doing your 8,000 steps. Goodness, that's brilliant. And a good diet, you've mentioned that already, and the cognitive stimulation. So that all adds up to SLEDGE, SLEDGE. But we're all doing that, I think, in different ways, aren't we?
Yes, that's very succinctly put. Thank you, Jennifer. So before we leave, we're getting to the end of our time. I wanted to see if anybody has any questions for any of our panelists. You can either raise your hand and ask it, or you can put it in the chat. Somebody's asking a question here. How old is the group? So All's Authors, we started in 2015. There were 3 of us who got this ball rolling. Mainly just helping to support each other through social media and blogging of our own books. And then in 2016, we started the blog and invited other authors to join us. So that was a 1-month project that we were going to do. We needed 20 authors. And then at the end of the month, we had more authors still waiting, and we really liked each other and we liked what we were doing. So we decided we would just keep it going and we'll see what happens. So that was 7 years ago. And so now we have over 350 authors in our collaborative, and that many books, if not many more, because some of the authors have more than one book. And we also include blogs, podcasts, and film as well. So we've been doing this for 8 years, and we're keeping going as far as we know.
And someone, if people are willing to share, someone's also asking of our reunion guests here, Peter, Jennifer, Michael, Gerda, how old our participants are, if you're willing to share. That was the question.
I am 59.
59. Okay, Michael.
I am 65, and I started having issues at age 39.
And I am 74. I was diagnosed when I was 61, but like Michael, I knew for, I would say almost 10 years before that my brain wasn't working as it was before. So,
thank you.
And I'm 78. But I took early retirement when I was 59 because that's when I started. I had to take early retirement, but it just shows you can keep well. It's hard work though, but people like you help us and encourage us, and we're so grateful to you as well. Yes.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, there's like a 10-year trajectory from the first suspicion until you get a definitive diagnosis. Is that right? Do you know, Jennifer?
Well, it can be. I had 5 years. I knew I had it, but I couldn't get a diagnosis for 5 years.
Yeah, and you said in your story that your doctor, he refused to diagnose you, correct? He was like a colleague and he didn't want to believe it.
Yeah. And didn't do any investigations. That's right. Yes, he didn't want to know. Yes. Well, because I can talk still. Not do a lot else, I can tell you, but I can still talk. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Gerda?
I just want to say that dementia is in so many respects an invisible disease, and people still almost every day accuse me of not having dementia. And while I understand it's coming from a place of wanting to be kind, it's actually very hurtful. I mean, you wouldn't tell that to somebody in a wheelchair, that they're actually not, they can actually just get up and walk. So I think that is just something that we also have to educate people about and talk about.
So true.
My father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and he lived with it for 25 years. During that period, his diagnosis was taken away once. And then after a couple of years, our local doctor at that time in his hometown decided that was absolutely ridiculous. So he went for more brain scans and they gave it back to him. Now, what this did was this made my father very anti-doctors and hospitals. So he wouldn't actually go to a doctor or a hospital after that. But what actually was wrong, really, is that, in my mind, the doctors didn't say, well, okay, why is this guy doing better than we think he should be doing? Why is he not conforming to what we perceive dementia to be? What is he doing that everybody else is not? That's not what they did. Because he wasn't going down the path that you should go down when you have dementia, therefore it was a complete, he hadn't got it. There was no movement on that. When they did decide that they wanted to know what he was doing to help him live well, he decided he wasn't going to tell them. He didn't want nothing to do. So there we go. So, all of us are doing things to help ourselves. And that's the key thing. As we have all said before, keeping positive, keeping active, and having a sense of purpose. They're the most key things.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter. That's a wonderful note to end on. Did you want to say something else, Gerda? Go ahead.
I just want to say that I couldn't agree more with Peter. And I think it's something we have to educate the medical profession on, because they have a list of things that people with dementia have. and they're not really keen to add other ways of having dementia to their list. And I've been diagnosed and undiagnosed and re-diagnosed. And right now, I don't know what I have. I don't care what I have. I just live with how I can make my life better, and particularly how Peter and my family and my friends, what I can ask of them to help me make my life better. So we have to take charge of ourselves as one has to do everywhere in life, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, everybody. We kind of went a little over our time. I just want to thank you all for attending this All's Authors live event, and details for future events will be posted on our website and emailed to our followers. So we have a few things coming up. We're going to do one more this year on dementia and the arts, and how using the arts can help people remain active and communicative. So that will be very interesting. And you can be among the first to know everything new at All's Authors as a subscriber to our weekly newsletter. So if you received the link to the event today, which I think you probably did, from email, then you are already a subscriber to our newsletter. So you can look for that every week in your box. It usually goes out on Tuesday night. There's one coming out tonight. But if you did not, if you just signed up through the link through the sign up form, you can sign up to the newsletter at allsauthors.com, and then check your inbox every week for news, introducing the latest author, podcast, our special events, and a lot more. And be sure to visit our blog, podcast, bookstore, and shop at allsauthors.com to find more resources for your dementia journey. And you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we share a wealth of resources there as well. And we want you all to remember that you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And yes, Michael, I see your note. I hope we can do this again in 2 years. Yes. Yes. Maybe we won't wait that long. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony.
Hi, I'm Susan of All's Authors. When I was a caregiver for my mother with dementia, resources to educate and offer support were hard to come by. All's Authors believes in the power of storytelling to support and encourage those impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia. Custom Caregiver Collections is a customized collection of memoirs, novels, caregiver guides, children's books, and more. This collection of well-vetted books comes displayed in a beautifully crafted wooden tabletop bookshelf with All's Authors branding. Custom Caregiver Collections supports our goal of bringing real books to real people in real places, and are perfectly suited for senior care communities, senior centers, doctors' offices, memory cafes, and professional or personal libraries. If you or your organization is interested in ordering or building a custom caregiver collection, we can guide you through choices of books written in many categories to support your needs. Want to build your own book collection? Contact us at allsauthors.com/CCC to get started.